Hello, I'm Tamara Banks. Thank you for joining me on this special edition of Studio 12 as I take you back to South Sudan, the world's newest country, as people there work to build their educational infrastructure. That's next on Studio 12.
So when I wake up this morning, my land welcoming me, and I felt so good. I love it, and this is where I want to be the rest of my life.
They say there's no place like home. Is that true?
There's nothing like home, and I think I'm sure this is what I was waiting for, and I got it today. So I'm already home. I can breathe in and breathe out, and it's just a fresh air. There is no polluted air.
The air is fresh here in Paguk, Jonglei State in South Sudan. This was Daniel Majak Guy's home until he was 9 years old, when he was taken at gunpoint by the Janjaweed, devil on horseback, men from the north, armed by the ruling government in Khartoum. 2.5 million people were killed, millions of others displaced or taken into slavery.
When you look at that, as somebody that was born here, grew up here, and chased out at gunpoint and leave your own family in your own homes, and went and live in exile, there's nothing emotional like that.
But this lost boy of Sudan, who has called Denver his home for the past 10 years, has found his way back to South Sudan. In my most recent trip to Sudan, Daniel shows me around his home village. After living in refugee camps in Ethiopia and Kenya as a child, and then eventually coming to the U.S., he's back home to help build the educational infrastructure.
So there's a lots of bad things that have happened to these people, and that's what moved me most of my time when I come here, is seeing them. They have nothing to eat, they have nothing to wear, and all of that. But they still have heart. They hope that one day, one time, our country will be independent, our country will stabilize, people will go back to original life, and they will enjoy their land as God created them into it.
Prayers were answered in January this year, after not one, but 2 civil wars and 125 years of oppression. Nearly 99% of South Sudanese voted to secede from the North, becoming the world's newest country.
It is very emotional for me. Most of the time I do feel like I want to cry for it, because our people are really left behind. And it's not their mistake. They have done nothing. It is because of the oppressive government of Sudan, the one that have kept our people behind, the one that have treated us most of the time as a second-class citizen in the country, a one that don't want us to succeed in life. That's what creates me to be emotional most of the time. And I hope, since the country now is divided up into 2 countries, our life will change. And I'm confident that my people are ready for change. And this is what they have shown. The community have united together.
And one of the first steps, educating its citizens to ensure this new country is self-sustaining and a productive member of the global community.
Education is very important at this side of land. Personally, one that have been traveled around the world from Ethiopia to Kenya and Kenya to America, I have seen what education is. And I think piece of what people went through during the war is because lack of education. Lack of education create also lack of resources. Lack of education create also lack of infrastructure, like you see the roads are not made. Lack of education also create lack of development in the country. Now you see there's no electricity in this area. There's no water available.
Daniel is the new Sudan director for Project Education Sudan, a Denver-based nonprofit raising money to build schools and provide curriculum and support for teachers in South Sudan. Carol Reinhardt, executive director and co-founder of Project Education Sudan, helped reunite 7 of the lost boys of Sudan with their families. She soon realized the war-torn country had little or no schools.
I remember when I came in 2005, there was no road and they were starving and gosh, a beautiful road and there's dormitories and there's classrooms and the girls and the women.
Project Education Sudan now has 5 schools in various stages of development in South Sudan.
Our philosophy has always been that we would empower the Sudanese and to guide them and mentor them to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. And that's why we're really focusing on leadership development this upcoming year, community leadership development at the grassroots level, the girls' leadership development at the all-girls Anyak Angwe Girls' School, and also teacher training empowerment.
And I think we have a song that we sing, I am the leader of my people. I am the leader of tomorrow. Tomorrow is my future and it's our future. So without teaching these kids, how can you expect the community of Agog will change in about 20 years? But when you teach them, you will see the community will change eventually.
The illiteracy rate among women and girls in South Sudan is 93%. Here in a village called Kombek, the only all-girls boarding school in the region, Anyak Angwe, is focusing on empowering girls.
I always said that leaders are not born from the government. The leaders are born from the community. And these are the leaders. These are the leaders of tomorrow.
And some of those leaders of South Sudan's tomorrow will be women. Here in the bush, the girls spend most of their time getting water at wells far from their villages and cooking and grinding grain for the family. There's little time for an education. But Project Education Sudan is not only building schools, they're raising money to build grinding mills so girls can spend more time focusing on their studies.
I know back in the days when I was in refugee camp, we didn't have a normal seat and there's sometimes we could use.
Imagine teaching with no teaching materials. Certainly educators in the U.S. have challenges, but nothing like teachers here in South Sudan. Few books, paper, or even pencils or pens are available. For more than a century, the southern part of Sudan has struggled to survive. Even teachers have been kept in the dark with little access to educational tools. But now radios, provided by Project Education Sudan, will allow teachers here to connect with the outside world. Since electricity is almost non-existent here in the bush, the radios are battery-operated. They only need to be wound up to work. And it truly takes a village to achieve the dream of education for all children in South Sudan. Community meetings are held to make sure there's community buy-in.
We hear that you have many things that need to be addressed in this community. We also know, how much you have suffered over the last decades. And Americans are only starting to learn about that.
When I left this town, I left at a gunpoint. And when I came back, things were changed. Even the trees themselves, they were different than the trees I used to know.
Full of emotion, Daniel Majagai tirelessly shares his story with his fellow countrymen and women all over South Sudan.
The reason I cry, I was helpless. I was helpless to see my people suffered. But at the same time, to bring American to my lands. to see what my people have went through, how desperate they have been, how shocking they have, how humiliated they have been humiliated in their own country. And the reason they have left behind is not their mistake. They have not done anything wrong. It's because they are hated by their color.
He says they're hated because they're black and Christians, and there is oil in this land. At this community meeting in his home village of Paguk, Daniel continues to encourage others. Nearly exhausted from a non-stop schedule, Daniel's spirits are buoyed with a surprise. Daniel's father, whom he's not seen in years, unexpectedly walks through the door. It's a joyful, tearful reunion.
My son, you went to Ethiopia and Kenya, and I didn't know you left at the gunpoint, and I really didn't know whether you will turn out to be a good boy. Because our country has been destroyed by Arabs.
I sat down with Baba Guy, with Daniel as my translator, and asked him how he felt about his lost boy coming home and now working to educate his people.
Even though if I die today, my history will remain, the building will be seen, and they will say this was built by Project Education Sudan and with the help of Daniel Guy.
Baba Guy tells me about the day his family was torn apart.
I know and I remember the day exactly when my family was split over and others running in different directions, and I still remember it very well after my son left home. We were still being attacked by the Arabs and the planes and all of that, and people that don't want us to leave. And I know that, and I still remember it very well. It breaks my heart. I don't like it, and we don't like it as a community in general.
The Scorch the Earth policy did just that. The extreme Muslims in the north burned everything in their path in villages in South Sudan. They even stole or killed livestock. But there's a serene sense about Baba Guy's spirit.
You don't seem bitter or angry at the oppressors. How do you keep so positive about what has happened to you and about the future for Southern Sudan?
God has helped me. So God has really solved our prayers. Those who were mistreating us and hate us, they have suffered in their own way now. Why do I need to be sad again? And God is on my side. You have dropped out of school because of the family needs or personal needs? That's not good.
It's a race against the clock to get children in the world's newest nation educated and ready to compete in the global market.
If you don't take this chance and go to school, you will not be able to have education. I think there's a simple expression. People say that you can drag a donkey to the water, but you will never make a donkey drink. That's the same thing to education. Project Education Sudan could build classes and classes. Your mother, your father will tell you to go to school in the morning. But if you don't yourself adjust that into you, digest it and use it and take the knowledge, then you will never be educated.
South Sudan is quickly moving into a democratic state, and the rest of the world is moving fast around them. It will be a challenge making up for 125 years of oppression, no education, little development, virtually ignored by the rest of the world. But the passion and commitment of a lost boy, emerging leaders, and a Denver-based non-government organization may be the tipping point for a bright future for South Sudan.
It really is the little NGO that could and does, because after meeting the lost boys of Sudan and working with them and reuniting them with their mothers and their fathers and their family after 21 years of war and separation, I've fallen in love with them. You can't help but continue helping those who want to help themselves.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second half of Studio 12. I'm your host Tamara Banks. I just returned from South Sudan, again the world's newest country. In January, nearly 99% of South Sudanese voted to secede from the north to become their own country. As you just saw, South Sudan has reason to celebrate, but now some say the real hard work begins.